Have you ever felt just, well, overwhelmed trying to wrap your head around cloud computing?
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, maybe you're trying to figure out, okay, which cloud platform do I even start with? Or maybe it's the sheer alphabet soup of cloud security terms that just leaves your head spinning.
You're definitely not alone in that.
Yeah.
It's complex.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive that actually started with a really fascinating Reddit thread. It kicked off this big debate about the major players, AWS, Azure, GCP. And from there, we're going to dive headfirst into the really critical and, often confusing world of cloud security. We've pulled insights from leading industry reports, detailed frameworks, trying to bring you the clearest info possible.
Yeah, our goal here really is to cut through some of that complexity. We want to equip you with the essential knowledge so you feel genuinely well informed about all this.
Right.
So we'll explore the nuances, choosing a cloud platform. And then we'll really unpack what it takes to secure your cloud environment properly. Think configuration, identity management, all that good stuff.
So you walk away understanding not just what these things are, but why they matter.
Exactly. Why they matter to you. Whether you're maybe a developer, a decision maker, or honestly just curious about how all this tech works.
All right, let's unpack this. So the core question on Reddit was pretty straightforward, wasn't it? Which cloud platform to start learning with?
Deceptively simple, yeah.
Because the answers, they were anything but simple. You had some users saying, it's all essentially the same.
Right, you hear that a lot.
But then others, like Vanguard 2K1, jumped in insisting the devil's in the details. What's really interesting is just how quickly you saw these really different perspectives on the big three emerge.
Absolutely. And while, yes, cloud providers do copy good features from each other, that's just market competition.
Sure.
But Vanguard 2K1 really highlights how networking controls are exposed vary and sometimes greatly vary. Now, that might sound niche, but it really hits security, routing, even staffing needs.
So it raises that question, right? If it's all the same, why are these small differences actually so important in practice?
Precisely. It's not just academic.
And it gets really interesting when you look at the job market side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Feisty Stretch 5212 pointed to Statista data, AWS having more market share globally. And Branded 2131 was like, learn AWS, look at the job listings. Simple as that.
Makes sense on the surface.
But then others jumped in saying, hang on, in my area, Azure jobs are way higher. Someone even mentioned an 80% Microsoft market share locally.
Wow, 80%.
Yeah. So it seems like your actual physical location can play a huge role in what skills are in demand, much more than you might think.
That's a really important point. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Schneids and DQ Mike made a good argument too. He said, look, even if AWS isn't maybe the easiest to learn upfront.
Right. Some find it complex.
The sheer volume of learning materials, articles, blogs, videos for AWS is just way more extensive. And that can be a massive draw if you're just starting out. Despite maybe Brave Logitech's ranking GCP is easiest, than Azure, than AWS in terms of pure ease of use.
So different paths for different learners. Let's dig into this sort of personality of each cloud as users described it. One person said AWS felt more confusing, complex at the start because of those nested accounts.
AWS organizations, yeah. Powerful, but adds a layer.
Exactly. And just the sheer number of resources can be overwhelming. Azure, though, was seen by some as easier straightforward because it felt like an extended AD structure.
Which makes sense, right? A lot of companies already live in the Microsoft Active Directory world, so Azure feels familiar.
It lowers the barrier.
All right.
And GCT, it got praise for straightforward naming and an easy-to-use UI. One user specifically loved its log explorer.
Yeah, GCP often gets points for developer experience and clarity in some areas.
But this brings up that classic issue, doesn't it? Vendor lock-in.
Always lurking.
Broccoli on Reddit made the point that, once you actually know what you're doing, you try to stay as vendor agnostic as possible. You define your infrastructure using tools like Terraform, OpenTofu, Pulumi, whatever.
Yeah, abstracting away the specifics.
So it suggests that while you kind of have to start with one cloud, the smart long-term play often involves not getting too tied down to just one vendor's way of doing things.
That's the goal for many, certainly.
Yeah.
Easier said than done sometimes, but yeah.
And then there's the human element, which is always fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
User Bluebugs had this, let's say, provocative take. AWS, mostly used by more technically driven companies.
Okay.
Azure, often chosen because management got a great sales pitch.
Ouch. Bit cynical maybe, but...
And GCP, the result of a consultant doing a quick demo before running away with the cash.
Okay, that's definitely humorous, but it does sort of point, maybe exaggeratingly, to the different ways organizations end up adopting a particular cloud, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not always just about the tech specs. It can be culture, sales influence, existing relationships.
Absolutely. And, for anyone trying to navigate these adoption decisions, especially thinking about the security and assessment angles, our sponsor, cloudassets.vibehack.dev, actually offers some really great resources to help evaluate your strategy and posture. Might be worth checking out if you're in that boat.
Okay, so let's say you've picked your cloud, or maybe you're already running workloads there. Now comes the really big question. How do you keep it secure?
The critical question.
And this is where that alphabet soup really starts boiling, right? All these acronyms for security solutions. We know cloud computing's growth has necessitated stronger security protocols.
For sure. The old ways don't always translate.
And Sentinel alone points out something pretty stark. Almost all successful cloud attacks result from user error, poor management, and misconfiguration.
That's the key takeaway. It's often not the cloud provider's fault, fundamentally. It's how we use it or misuse it.
Which sounds like a problem we absolutely need to understand and prevent.
It really is critical. Cloud environments, just by their nature, introduce an increased attack surface. There's just more out there. And often, as XBM explains, there's a lack of visibility and tracking compared to maybe traditional data centers.
Things move faster.
Exactly. This dynamic environment, ever-changing workloads. It just means traditional security approaches often fall short. And that's precisely why we have these specialized tools.
Okay, let's start breaking them down. First up, CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. What is that in plain English?
Okay, so CSPM. Think of it as tools and processes specifically for identifying and remediating risks across cloud infrastructures. That's how SysTig defines it.
So like checking the foundations?
Sort of, yeah. It's like having an automated inspector constantly checking if your cloud house is built securely. Are the doors locked? Windows shut? Are you following security best practices and how everything is configured? It's about that baseline configuration hygiene.
Got it. And what makes it so effective? You mentioned that stat earlier.
Yeah. The Gartner research cited by Sentinel, it suggested CSPM can potentially reduce cloud-based security incidents caused by misconfigurations by 80%.
80%. That's huge. How does it achieve that? What are the core things it does?
Well, its core capabilities are really key. It does continuous assessment against known standards, like CIS benchmarks or NIST. It detects those misconfigurations we talked about. Crucially, it gives you a centralized view of all your cloud assets, which can be sprawling otherwise. And it helps prioritize the risks it finds.
So it cuts through the noise.
Exactly. Wiz emphasizes how vital it is for fighting those blind spots you get in complex, maybe multi-cloud setups. It provides risk context and prioritization, helps meet compliance requirements, and improves operational efficiency. That 80% reduction really comes from shifting security left, making compliance almost part of the daily operation, not just a reactive fire drill.
Okay, that 80% makes more sense now. It's about continuous, proactive checking. What are some of the common mistakes, those misconfigurations that CSPM is designed to catch?
SysTig lists a bunch of the usual suspects. Things like overly permissive IAM policies, basically, giving users or services way more access than they need.
The principle of least privilege violation.
Exactly. Also, exposed resources due to misconfigured access policies, think unsecured storage buckets. Failure to enforce multi-factor authentication, MFA, a basic but vital step.
Still surprises me how often that's missed.
Right. Also, not using encryption, where you should be. Lack of network segmentation to isolate systems, misconfigured logging and monitoring so you can't even see if something bad is happening, and even unsecured APIs. It's a whole range of potential configuration pitfalls.
Okay, so that's CSPM, checking the structure, the configuration. What about CIEM, Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management? How does that fit in?
Good question. If CSPM is about the house being built securely, CIEM is all about who has the keys, how many keys they have, and exactly what doors those keys open inside the house.
Ah, the identity and access part.
Precisely. Sentinel alone defines it as monitoring and controlling access, rights permissions across multiple cloud environments. Its main focus is tackling excessive, unused, or misallocated privileges. It's all about enforcing that least privilege concept rigorously, making sure identities, users, application services have only the absolute minimum access they need to do their job.
Why is that so critical?
Because if an identity is compromised, maybe a password leak or a phishing attack, Overly broad permissions allow an attacker to move laterally, access more systems, steal more data. CIEM aims to shrink that potential blast radius.
Makes sense. So what kind of organizations really lean heavily on CIM? Where do you see it most?
Well, you see examples like Netflix using it to manage their incredibly complex web of AWS permissions. Tens of thousands of permissions, probably. Yeah. Financial institutions use it for building zero trust deployments, where you basically trust nothing by default and verify everything. Healthcare providers use it to meticulously trace access to patient data for compliance and privacy. It's really crucial anywhere you have complex permissions or highly sensitive data that needs tight access control and auditing.
Okay. CSPM for configuration, CIM for entitlements. Then there's CWPP, Cloud Workload Protection Platforms. What's the workload part mean here?
So CWPP, as Entitlement describes it, is about securing the actual cloud workloads. While CSPM looks at the overall environment configuration, CWPP focuses on protecting the individual things running within that environment.
Like the applications and services themselves.
Exactly. That includes serverless workloads, virtual machines, containers, and even physical machines, if they're part of your hybrid setup. CWPP offers deeper protection at the workload level. Think things like vulnerability finding within the application code or container image, exploit and live threat detection looking for malicious activity on the workload, and specialized protection for containers and serverless functions, which have their own unique security challenges.
So it's a more granular runtime protection layer.
That's a good way to put it. CSPM sets the secure stage. CWPP protects the actors performing on it.
Got it. It feels like there are other pieces too, though. Any other major acronyms we should be aware of in this space?
Absolutely. You'll definitely hear about CIEM security information and event management. That's about collecting and analyzing logs from everywhere, cloud, on-prem applications to spot suspicious patterns.
Centralized logging and alerting.
Right. Then there's CNAPP, Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. This is kind of an evolution, often aiming to be a more unified platform that integrates capabilities from CSPM, CWPP, maybe even CIEM, into a single solution, trying to reduce tool sprawl.
Consolidation. Makes sense.
And finally, DLP, data loss prevention. That focuses specifically on finding and preventing sensitive data like credit card numbers or personal info from leaving your control, whether accidentally or maliciously.
Okay, that's a lot of tools and acronyms. For anyone trying to keep track of all this and understand how these tools fit into a broader security strategy, checking out resources like our sponsor, www.vibehack.dev, could be really helpful. They often cover these kinds of trends and best practices. So we've got CSPM, CIM, CWPP, CIEM, CNAPP. It sounds like a complex ecosystem. But the real power isn't just in the individual tools, is it? It's how they work together.
That is absolutely the key point. They aren't really meant to be islands. Sentinel is very clear that CIM and CSPM, for example, while different, absolutely complement each other in a company's cloud security strategy.
How so? What do you gain by integrating them?
Well, when you bring them together, you get more holistic view of security. You cover both the identity-based threats, who has access, and the infrastructure configuration issues, is the environment set up securely. This leads to increased risk identification because you can correlate findings. Maybe overly permissive access, CIM, combined with an exposed resource, CSPM, is a much higher risk than either one alone.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's about understanding how they fit into a layered defense. Same goes for CWPP and CSPM. One secures the environment's configuration, the other protects the workloads within that environment. They address different but related parts of the problem.
Okay, so you need a strategy to bring these pieces together. How do organizations typically do that? How do they structure their approach? This seems like where frameworks might come in. You mentioned NIST.
Yes, exactly. The NIST cybersecurity framework, specifically version 2.0, which came out in February 2024, is hugely important here. Think of it as a recommended cybersecurity baseline for pretty much any organization.
Baseline, so it's not super prescriptive.
Right. It's not a rigid checklist telling you exactly how to achieve security, but rather it provides a flexible taxonomy of high-level cybersecurity outcomes. It defines what good security looks like, what outcomes you should be aiming for.
And version 2.0 expanded its scope.
Significantly. It now explicitly applies to all types of organizations. Small schools, nonprofits, huge enterprises, government agencies. It doesn't matter how mature your security program is, provides a common language and structure, and really importantly, it added a new core function. Govern.
Govern. What does that entail?
It emphasizes that cybersecurity isn't just an IT problem. It's a key enterprise risk that needs oversight from senior leadership. just like financial or operational risk. So the 6 core functions now are govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. A complete life cycle.
Okay, and here's where it gets really practical for cloud users, right? You mentioned AWS maps its services directly to these functions.
Yes, and that's incredibly helpful. For example, for that new govern function, AWS points to services like AWS IAM Identity Center for managing identity centrally, AWS Organizations for managing multiple accounts, AWS Config for tracking changes, and AWS Security Hub, which acts as a CSPM, remember, for consolidating security findings.
So Security Hub fits right into the govern and identify pieces.
Exactly. And for identify, they highlight things like Systems Manager Inventory for asset management, Amazon Macie for discovering sensitive data, and IAM Access Analyzer for checking permissions. It shows how you can use the cloud provider's own tools to implement the principles laid out in a major framework like NIST CSF.
That mapping is super useful. But, given all these tools and frameworks, I'm hearing some chatter, some industry experts suggesting that maybe just scanning for misconfigurations is an outdated approach. What's behind that thinking?
That's a really interesting and, I think, important evolution in thinking. The point, as Firefly puts it, is that while CSPM tools add layers of complexity if you're just chasing alerts, simply scanning for vulnerabilities is not the goal. Finding problems is only the means. The goal is keeping the cloud secure and governed proactively.
So moving beyond just finding problems to preventing them.
Precisely. And this is where the huge shift towards infrastructure as code, or IAC and policy as code, comes in.
Define those quickly for us.
So IAC means defining your entire cloud infrastructure, servers, networks, databases, everything in code files, using tools like Terraform or CloudFormation instead of clicking around in a console.
Okay, so it's repeatable, automated setup.
Exactly. It provides consistent configurations, enables automated deployments, and helps with drift detection spotting when the live environment no longer matches the code. And policy as code takes it further, letting you define your security and compliance rules as code too, so they're checked automatically before anything even gets deployed.
So you're building security into the code, into the process itself.
Yes, that's the key. As Firefly argues, if you don't fix it in IAC, the fix won't last. Manual fixes drift. Fixing it in the code makes the secure state the default repeatable state.
That idea of fixing it in IAC, that really makes sense. I remember projects where manual configuration drift was just a constant battle. This feels like a much more robust approach. But does this mean tools like CSPM are on their way out, becoming obsolete?
It definitely feels like a paradigm shift, pushing security much earlier, shifting left, as they say, but obsolete. No, I don't think so. Their role is evolving, though. We're seeing cloud asset management platforms, Firefly is one example, integrating CSPM functionalities.
So CSPM becomes part of a broader platform.
Kind of. These newer platforms often go further. They might help you codify existing assets, turn your manually created stuff into IAC. They help detect shadow IT resources created outside the official process, and they still ensure continuous compliance scanning. The trend seems to be towards consolidating tools, yes, but more importantly, making security proactive and built in via code, rather than just reactive scanning after deployment.
Prevention through automation, integrated into the development lifecycle.
That's the direction things are definitely heading. Hashtag, outro.
Wow, what a journey. We've really covered some ground today. We navigated the sometimes confusing choices between cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP.
Unpacked that whole alphabet soup, CSPM, CIEM, CWPP.
Right. Demystified those security solutions. And we looked at how crucial frameworks like NIST CSF 2.0 provide that essential roadmap for building robust security.
And crucially, how infrastructure as code is changing the game, letting you secure your cloud proactively, right from the code itself.
So hopefully you now have a much clearer picture of the nuances between the big cloud providers, the distinct jobs of those security tools, but also how they complement each other.
And that critical importance of embedding security into your actual processes using frameworks in IAC. Yeah. It's not just a bolt-on anymore.
Yeah, the big takeaway for you listening is clear, really. Whether you're maybe just picking your first cloud platform, or you're trying to lock down an existing environment, or maybe you're looking to advance your career in DevOps or cloud security.
Understanding these interconnected pieces is absolutely paramount. From those vendor differences we discussed early on, right through to these cutting-edge security practices like IAC.
Absolutely. And hey, if you are looking to explore these topics further, find more resources, or maybe assess your own cloud setup, remember to check out our sponsors, cloudassets.vibehack.dev and www.vibehack.dev. They've got some great stuff over there.
Definitely worth a look. And, here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on as we wrap up. If this future of cloud security really does lie in infrastructure as code, in this proactive prevention that's literally woven into every deployment, how might that change the very definition of what a security professional is in the next few years?
Interesting question.
Yeah. What new skills become the most valuable when security isn't just reacting to alerts, but it's actually part of the fabric of building and deploying everything in the cloud? Something to think about.